All right, we're ready? All right, cool. Well, welcome to ModTalk. This is episode 2. And before we start, we want to just tell you, if you're listening, please follow us on your whatever podcast you're listening to. Make sure you follow us and like the episodes, and also follow us online. It's really important to help our ranking. So this week, Josh is with us again. Josh, what's up?
Not too much. Enjoying the sun. It's heating up out there.
Nice. If you guys are new to the episode, I'm Damian Mel, CEO and co-founder of Modern Real Estate Shop, and Josh Tedrow here is our operations manager. And so today we're going to talk about what is property management. Been getting a lot of questions as we've been signing brokers and agents up on our new wholesale platform, asking what exactly is property management. And it's surprising that for me, I think it's a common term, but I guess real estate agents, if you're not really working in property management, obviously you know the term, but you don't really know what it encompasses, and every company may be slightly different. But so today we're going to talk about the life cycle of property management, kind of go over some of the costs associated with it, answer some questions about, what are owners paying for? That seems to be a topic of discussion. Some of the laws and fair housing that is in our world post-COVID, and talk about some repairs and repair issues and things like that. So really, this episode, what we're kind of hoping to achieve is really help agents and brokers who are signing up for our wholesale management services, giving them the ability to understand what management is, be able to articulate that to their clients, and obviously be able to sign clients up to help them build their portfolio of clients. So we'll jump right into it. So, all right, cool. So just really the life cycle of management, it really comes down to when we get a new property. The first thing we do is we inspect it, right? An agent signs up a property, we get alerted there's a new property, and the first thing we do is we reach out to either the agent or the homeowner, whoever has keys, and we get out to the property and we inspect it. And then from that inspection, we'll determine what needs to get done on a property, right? Whether it needs to have repairs. Sometimes a property is great condition. Sometimes it's brand new. Everything's ready to rock and roll. Other times the owner's moved out, or maybe he had another renter that's moved out. And so we'll do a comprehensive inspection on the property. The owner will get a bid for any work that needs to get done. And I'd say probably about 95% of owners will have us do the work, right, Josh?
Yeah, exactly.
Some owners are a little bit more detailed, like they're in the area, they like to be a little more hands-on, but they'll use that list as an opportunity to say, okay, we see what you recommend needs to get done, and then they'll handle those things. And then once the property's ready, we market the property on the MLS and all the traditional Zillow and all the other aggregates out there for the lease. We qualify the renter. We underwrite the lease. We get the renter signed, moved in, collect the funds, and then from that point we manage the relationship with the renter through the entire life cycle of that lease. Anything from being available 24/7 for emergency repairs, helping them when they are past due, getting them back on track through collection efforts, setting them on payment plans, and then of course obviously if we have a tenant that doesn't pay or something horrific happens and they need to be evicted, we will handle that entire process. And then along the way, obviously, we're paying the owners on a regular basis, and we're sending them their taxes at the end of the year with their statement of what's happening. So that really kind of encompasses the full life cycle, right? There's a lot of details. I think
you need to catch your breath real quick. There was a lot right there.
There's a lot of details in between every one of those, but that's really what the life cycle is. And I get questions. Matter of fact, today I was at a broker's office talking with their agents, and they really said, like, what do you do for property management? And I'm always floored by that, because I think you've been in the business. How do you not know? But I mean, I guess it makes sense in some degree. I guess I've been doing it so long. But yeah, they're like, what do you do? What do I tell the owners that you do outside of, collect the rent? I think sometimes people think that it's just collecting rent.
Well, I think that's the beauty of us too. It's not I don't know really of any property management companies that have a repairs side to it. So that's like the most important aspect of us as well. We have almost everything under our umbrella, which is amazing. Yeah.
And I know definitely when we get down to the our list here today, we'll talk about the property that's flooded through our torrential rains that we had in SoCal this year, and some bad designs of years of people installing stuff and concrete and things like that, causing major flooding, and how we were able to kind of walk that owner through and resolving it. But yeah, no, you're right. We get owners who say, I'm with another property manager, and they just really don't know how to resolve a situation. They don't really, and to some degree, there's obviously some great management companies out there that have that skill set, but some don't really have it. They kind of rely on vendors. They don't really know when things go bad, like how to jump in and come up with a solution. And so, yeah, you're right. Having that construction aspect within our team, man, makes it a world of difference.
Yep.
Even on properties I own, we get issues. I mean, we have a property now it's got a leak on the first floor. It's originating from the third floor. Like, I would have never figured that out, right? But our team goes in there, they diagnose it, and they're able to come up with a game plan to get it fixed. Those are the things that you send a plumber sometimes, and they're just gonna say, no, I can't find it, but hey, I ripped a bunch of holes in your drywall.
Yeah.
And they kind of leave it. So that aspect of it is super helpful. So the question that I get to is, what does property management cost? And I think what we're seeing out there, the average is 8 to 10%. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
8 to 10%. Yeah. I mean, obviously there's ones that are lower. There's discount companies, and again, it's like anything else. You get what you pay for, right? I mean, if you get somebody that's going to do it for $59 a month, don't expect them,
You definitely get what you pay for.
Yeah. So, because I say it every time. And I said in our last podcast, we're like insurance. If you have cheap insurance, you're going to get cheap results.
Yep.
It's not to say that you want to gouge your customer, but when you incentivize the company that is working for you financially to do a good job, they're going to do a good job, and they make enough revenue to be able to hire the right people to support that team, right? And I think sometimes people forget that it takes a team, right? So so I've been getting a lot of questions on cost, and brokers and agents who have been signing up ask, hey, what do we set the rate at? What do we set the rate at? And so, what we're seeing is 8 to 10%. I'm seeing a lot of brokers signing up their clients 8.5%, 9% for management, and then for the leasing services, I'm seeing some brokers are doing really well at 75% of the first month's rent as the commission rate for
Yeah,
leasing.
I saw one at 100%.
I know. I've actually seen a few, and I think where that really comes down to is, what kind of relationship does the broker or agent have with the client, right? So if the client's treating you like a commodity and shopping you, you're basically a race to the bottom. Who can be the cheapest? And that's usually kind of an indication of what kind of client you have. But when you have a good relationship with the client, and the client's willing to turn their home over to you, you're able to get a better rate return. And it's like that. I think any agent or broker would acknowledge it's that way too at commission, right? If they have a really good relationship with a client, you're trying to list a property for sale, you're going to be able to get that property at 5.5, maybe even a 6% commission rate, versus when you have a client shopping you simply for price, doesn't value what you do. He's going to, hey, can you do it for 2%, 1% to the buyer and seller each respectively, and there's no incentive there.
Yeah, well, they start treating you like your family, and even if you were family, wouldn't you think you'd support your family by helping them out?
No, right? Family always wants discounts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so again, I think a lot of the cost is really relationship based, and having and who better to have a relationship than the agent or broker, right? And that kind of goes along with what we were talking about last episode as well. So if you haven't listened to the first episode, I encourage you to go back and listen to it. But we talked about the agent having more than one trick in his bag, being able to do more for a property owner, being able to say, hey, I can list a property, I can help you find a property, we can do management, I can help you with repairs, I can help you with other aspects of your property, and you become that resource and you build that relationship. And I think that's really how you cultivate your business in that way. I think you're going to be much more profitable and not be with the ups and downs of the market.
No, exactly. Property management will always be okay or great. It's never going to usually be down.
Yeah, well, and it's something that needs to be done, right? Like, there's always going to need to be repairs and things like that. That the more you do as an agent, the more you offer as an agent, the better you're going to be. And in fact, we just listened to Housing Wire last week, and they had a conference in Austin, and they were talking about affiliate programs. Right now are on fire. People are talking about affiliate programs and property management. Those were the two big topics of discussion. And one was, agents are currently being squeezed on commission, or they're having a hard time doing a transaction because there's not a lot of volume out there. There's not a lot of opportunity.
The inventory is real low.
Yeah, and so they're having to subsidize that with other ways. And so one of the things to do that is affiliate programs is exactly what we're talking about. Having affiliates be able to generate revenue from third-party companies that provide a resource to your client.
Mm-hmm.
And so the other aspect was property management. They said, there was, I forget the gentleman's name, but he had started a property management division in this company back in 2010 when he realized he needed to do something else to survive after the downturn. But the hurdle is, it's a huge task, right? It's a huge task. You have to build out the customer service and the vendors and all the details and everything that goes along with it. And a lot of agents look at that and they go, man, that's just massive, And so listening to that kind of was encouraging, because I was like, hey, wait a minute. We fall in perfectly for that. We are a bolt-on property management tool without having to do that, right? And we're the perfect affiliate program for the agent or broker.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's been, I think that really highlights, we're kind of in the right market at the right time. And when I'm talking to agents, they seem to be really excited. Like, wow, this is cool, because they're looking for that additional revenue.
I completely agree.
I think he fell asleep.
Yeah. Breathe again. Breathe.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's, really kind of, again, comes back down to cost. Is what are you able to generate in revenue is how useful and how much of a relationship do you have with your client. And so that is where we're seeing that navigate to. And that's kind of the feedback we're already getting on the early stages of that with the brokers that are signing up. So that's been good. And actually this morning, we got a referral this morning from a broker. Husband does mortgages. Well, actually, she does mortgages. Her husband does real estate. They do a certain area of pretty nice high-end homes. And she's like, yeah, I was told to just sign up with you. I don't even know what you do. And so I called her and I told her what we do, and I told her how the program works. And I told her, listen, you sign up your client. And
Did you go through the site already?
What's that?
Did you go through the site already?
No, she hadn't gone to the site yet. She goes,
I'm excited about the site.
No, I know. She was like, and I'll tell you about that too in a second with this office call I did today. But she was like, "Wait a minute, I'm going to sign the client up, and I'm going to get money every month." She was like, "Oh my God, this is awesome! Like I don't know any company that's doing that." So she was,
and then after it's done, if they might want to sell, take it back.
Exactly.
It's all you.
Exactly. But yeah, so I went to an office today, and I talked to a broker and his team, and they had been with us for I think they signed up 6 months ago, and I said, hey, what's keeping you guys from moving forward, right? Like they needed a little help in understanding property management. So we kind of gave that to him today. But one of his feedbacks was, he goes, I had to download your forms. I had to get with the client. I had to sign them, even if it was through EchoSign or Adobe Sign. But it felt like a little cumbersome, and
a lot of hurdles.
Yeah, we're not used to doing these things, and so it was a little bit of I don't know. So we kind of stayed away from it. But we showed him today, and we demoed today our new system, and I was like, look it. Register the customer in literally 2 minutes, and then you register the property and set the rates. It took us I think he timed it. It was literally 3 minutes to get the whole thing done. Sends out a link to the owner, and they emulate the owner right there, and they're able to sign it on their
it looks
on their
great
device.
on the iPad too. So if they're with them physically too,
they can do it right there. Yeah, and so they were able to sign it, and it generated everything. And he goes, "That's it." I go, "That's all you need to do. You just pop in the information on the portal, and it literally automates the entire task now." And he's like, okay, this feels a lot better. He's like, this is what I can sink my teeth into this. He's like, now I don't have to feel like I have to bust out the old school forms or start reading through your documents here. I can just talk to him about, what we can do for you. And so the first thing he said, he goes, yeah, I got a buddy who has a fourplex and he's not really happy with his management company. And he goes, I was thinking about referring him over to you. I go, no, don't refer him to me. Sign him up.
Yeah, exactly.
You got the portal. He goes, okay, I got your point. Sign him up, get him in your portal, get it registered. It's a perfect, opportunity. And I said, it'll take you 5 minutes, as you just saw, and we'll take over, and you'll be set. That'll be a customer in your portal that you're earning money on.
Yeah, and plus their dashboard's great. They can see everything that's they're generating, everything that's coming in. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, they like that. We learned a lot too, because as we were talking to them, he was like, hey, what about notes or this or that? So we came back and talked to the development team and said, hey, let's add a few more features. So we told them that'll keep adding. But so it was that hurdle that was really keeping him. And then as soon as we start pushing him, he goes, well, I actually have a couple of customers that I think would, have already kind of been talking about property management. And if I had not talked to them and showed them the new things, they would have let that just go right by them and they would have lost opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
But he starts seeing like, hey, I can make money. I can make almost $100 or if not more than $100 on these clients. He's like, holy cow, like what am I doing?
No.
So yeah, I think that was the point that drove it home for him, was just making it simple and not getting lost in the details of what we do as management.
Making it easy and convenient.
Yeah, exactly. And because he has that relationship, he's able to achieve those cost factors, right? He's able to, he's able to get him signed up at an 8.5, or maybe 9%, and that's a healthy margin for him. And the customer is super satisfied because he has that relationship, and now he knows it's getting taken care of.
Well, the more they can sell to and increase that management fee, obviously, the more they're going to make as well.
Yeah, exactly,
No.
exactly. So, and then going down the list and kind of is, what am I paying for, right? And that's the biggest thing that owners will ask us, and mainly owners that have been doing it themselves. What do I need you for? What am I paying for? And it's I think you've taken owners that have come to us with crazy leases, or they've done it themselves.
Oh yeah. Well, I think it's the whole summary you had at the very beginning. I mean, there's so much more in there too. And it's the years of knowledge, the experience. It's like when our repairs department too, all of our trusted technicians and what they've learned, our team themselves, the laws, talking with our attorneys every day, constantly going over all this stuff. I mean, I can go on too. I can be out of breath, and at first it's I feel like when owners are like, oh, you know what, I know what to do. I can go into this. It'll be fine. And they start realizing, oh crap, like I served a notice and this was wrong. Oh snap, I'm getting a lawsuit. Oh snap, I'm losing. What's happening, right? Especially how I think in the last episode too, we talked about LA County and how we talked about AB 1482. That's a topic too that's very hot, and that was during COVID as well. So it's like, for instance, for owners who are privately owned, they're exempt and they don't usually have to worry about this topic. But anyone who's incorporated, real estate investment, things of that nature, they'll have to worry about that. They're not exempt, and so they can't just do rent increases all off the bat. They have to look at those laws. They have to make sure, depending on the county, especially LA, we have to calculate off a 5% base and CPIs, and we have to make sure that stuff's good to go. If not, issues can happen. Tenants can go back and they'll get a lawyer real quick, and owners think, whoa, a lawyer, what?
Well, exactly. A lot of tenants know their rights, and they know how to find their rights, and the county and the cities are very big on promoting and letting tenants know that they have rights, and so that kind of works against you if you're not paying attention and staying on top of it. So that definitely is a huge factor of what you're paying for. You're paying for that expertise. You're paying for that years of knowledge, like you said, like years of knowledge, knowing what we're looking for. Like even when we're underwriting a lease, owners look for emotional, physical things that they think they can judge off of. Those things tend to be illegal things, and what we're looking for patterns. We're looking at credit reports. We're looking at things that we know based on our experience what is worth it, what's not worth it, right? Like where's their reserves at? What is on their credit report, right? And I think the biggest thing that we saw in 2010, 2011, 2012 was bankruptcies. We'd have owners go, I don't want people with a credit score, below 700. Well, okay, that's not practical, number one. And number two is there's a lot of bankruptcies. But bankruptcies and foreclosures happen to like 10% of the population. And that shouldn't be a reason why to, say someone's not qualified, right? And so there's other factors, right? Now if you're looking at a credit report and there's, jewelry loans, tons of them past due. Okay, this is a person that's living beyond their means, and they're being bling bling, and they can't afford it, right? Or they have like a crazy car loan, and they can't afford it. And and speaking of that, you'll like this one. So when I was getting my my new car, the rep at the car lot accidentally sent me someone else's file. Saying that you're approved with some handwritten notes on there. He meant to send me mine. And, and mine was tier 1, just normal, like I've been with, and it was, I've been with Lexus forever. And so it was like tier 1, boom, you're just getting another one. Everything's good to go. But he sends me this one where this guy's got a 580 credit score, and he's buying an LS, which is their flagship sedan. And the car is like $112,000. I mean, I'm looking at all this, right? It was funny. And, he's literally going to pay like $3,200 a month for this on a ridiculous interest rate through subprime lending because he has to put this massive amount down on it. And I just thought, like, this is crazy. Here's an individual who should not be in this vehicle, but it's bling bling. He's got to show off. He's got to be driving a fat ride,
No.
and he can't afford it, right? And so those are the types of things that we look for. Those are things that we're looking for. Those ridiculous car loans, or where we're looking and seeing someone stretching out of their means of being able to afford something. Those are the type of things that we're looking for. That not, a lot of owners won't necessarily pick that up. Or they won't have access to they'll have access to a public credit report that they ask the renter to pull for them.
No.
And they don't see these trends on there. And so those are things that you're paying for. You're paying for that professional underwriting. And it's not to say that your renter's not going to go in foreclosure, not foreclosure, but eviction. It's not going to say that we're past due.
Yeah, anything can happen. I've had tenants come in with 700 credit, and they have money in the bank, but 2 years later, life happens. And
exactly.
Things can go downhill real quick.
Yeah, we're not guaranteeing success. What we're doing is we're working to mitigate potential losses.
Yeah.
That's our job, is to mitigate potential losses. We don't have a crystal ball. We can't tell if somebody's going to lose their job or go through a divorce, but we're looking to potentially mitigate those losses by having good, factors of what we're looking at. So that's one thing that I would say is probably one of the best cost factors. I'd say the other is the peace of mind, knowing that you don't have to take a phone call at 2:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
I think that's a nice factor.
Yeah, we deal with a lot of emergency calls. So that's always nice. And that's like going back to our last episode. It's like, look, we tell our owners too. It's like, that's what you pay us for too. It's like, we're making sure that we're talking to these tenants. You don't have to deal with that. You're not having, like you're saying, making those emotional responses, right? We're the middleman. We're making a logical response. We're looking at everything from outside the box too, seeing it from every aspect, every corner. And it's how you're saying, we're getting calls at 2:30 in the morning. They have a plumbing issue. The water's starting to flood everywhere. What do I, and they're freaking out too. You're going to get a tenant who's very emotional. So it's like, it's best for, we're good at that. We have years of it. We understand that. We'll tell them right away, look, we're going to look for this. We're going to shut the water off. We're going to figure this out together, right? We're going to walk everyone through it step by step.
Yeah, exactly. And I think too is, owners will say, oh, I can do that. Do you want to do it in the middle of a family barbecue on Sunday?
Yeah.
Right, where you're at the beach and you're with your family, you're at the movies, and then you look down on your phone, you got a text from a tenant, right? And so again, that is what you pay us for, and that peace of mind knowing that, hey, my house is taken care of, I have someone taking care of it. And sometimes I'll have clients, I've had clients in the past say, we're good, and then they're not good, and they call back and they go, I can't take it anymore.
No.
I got a life, and depending on the age of their house, and some houses are more prone to having repair issues than others. Some houses go years without having a repair issue, right? And then they're taken care of. The tenant takes care of the minor issues. He doesn't even bother us. But some homes are older and they have problems, and they definitely use our system, right? And so I think that at that point the owner does see some value there, because he's like, hey, I don't have to deal with this, and everything's recapped for me, and it's taken care of.
Yeah, well, it's like, I look at it as kind of like similar to insurance in a sense, because you can have the most amazing tenant for 5 years and not one repair, and you're like, well, why don't I do this myself? And I've had owners, they'll take it back, and I'll get a call 3 months later, yeah, all this happened, and we had this repair happen, and now it's crazy. Can you guys just look over it, or can you? I'm like, well, I was like, cancel or well, okay. How do I get back with you? How do we? I'm like, this stuff happens. It's like, that's what we're here for. It's like, if everything's moving smoothly, that's great, but it's not a matter of if, it's when.
Yeah,
things
exactly.
will happen.
Things do happen. Things happen. People underestimate the number of things that happen. When you live in a home, you tend to, something happens, you just fix it. Garbage disposal goes out, you fix it. You don't think about it. You don't think like, oh, I had a repair. You just take care of it. Your appliances go out, you fix them. It's just what happens in life. When your tenant calls you, you're like, well, why are you calling me? Well, it went out. And then it seems more of a major issue all of a sudden. Like, what do you mean it went out? Well, when it goes out in your house, you don't think about it. But because you're not living in the house, you're not inconvenienced by it, all of a sudden you get this phone call that something went out. It just seems sometimes a bigger deal than it is, right? And so we obviously want to take care of that. We want to take care of the renter, right? We want to treat him. We want the renter to know that the owner cares about them
Mm-hmm.
and wants to take care of the property. When we take care of the property for the owner, the tenant is more likely to take care of the property for the owner. When the owner doesn't want to take care of the property, the tenant's not going to want to take care of the property because they're going to say, hey, the owner doesn't give a shit. Why do
Yeah.
I give a shit? It's not my house. It's a rental. And we've all heard that statement. It's just a rental. But when the owner takes care of the property, and I know like on my rentals, I take care of it. My tenant just called me. He just texted me yesterday and said that the plumbing, and I know Harvey was working on that, the plumbing's backed up. You know what he said? He goes, do you know a good plumber? I'll take care of it. I'll pay for it. Because he knows we take care of everything.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, it's okay. I'll send a plumber. We'll take care of it. That's our job. But he's always wanted to take care of things because he knows that we take care of him and everything's always resolved. And so he's appreciative of that. And so that factor in being able to be responsive is a huge factor. It keeps your tenant in there longer, keeps more money flowing into the property owner's bank account.
Exactly, because it's people don't realize too, and I mean every market's different, but depending on your area too, certain homes they go vacant, depending on trends and everything that's happening. It's like obviously we do our due diligence, and I know right now, depending on the area, like local to where we're at, actually, it doesn't take too long. It takes 2 weeks to at least a month on average right now to get something rented out real quick. But depending on the area, it could take a lot longer. And so that brings it back into point two. So it's like, are you willing to lose that revenue for X amount of months, possibly, depending on what happens,
Yeah.
It's like you want to make sure your tenants are taken care of, and then there could be potential lawsuits like we talked about earlier too. There's a lot of different things that could happen.
Yeah, no, exactly. In
Is
fact,
it really worth it?
kind of talking about the law, like talk to me a little bit about AB 1482. I always mess up those numbers. AB 1482, correct? Tell me a little bit about that and tell our listeners a little bit about what that law is and how it's impacting owners of rental property.
Well, like I said, for right now, so incorporated, any LLCs or real estate investments, they're mainly affected by it. So they're not exempt from that law, and basically it's making sure they don't increase, I guess you can say, too much. Depending on and this is why we say this is important for all owners to increase at least on a yearly basis, because if you don't do that, you're doing a disservice to the tenant. Because like for instance, for anyone who's not or who is exempt from this, they can increase more than 10%, but what can happen is you can scare your tenants, and that's not a good thing either, right? You're not going to jump from $2,000 to $3,000. It's semi unreasonable to think
Correct.
that way. Yeah. And so with AB 1482, for anyone who has basically who's incorporated or LLC or any of that or anything like that, it's pretty much narrowing down to them. And basically they can't go over 10%. So the law is basically saying it's a 5% base, and they go off the consumer percentage index. And so I know Riverside County, I just did one recently where we had to do that for an owner who's incorporated. And I think the highest we could do is a 9.7%.
So can they go over 10% or 10% is the cap?
No, for if they're
If they're a corporation, do they have a cap?
Yeah, they have a cap. So whatever's it's either 10%,
Whatever's less.
Yeah.
So it's either So let's recap this. So if you own rental property and you are holding your property title in an LLC, LLP, or corporation, basically a company, right? You're a company, you're an investment company, you're subjected to AB 1482.
Yep.
And 1482 is limiting how much you can increase the rent on an annual basis. And so let me get this straight, it's a 5% plus CPI, Consumer Price Index. And if you're not familiar with CPI, you guys can Google it. CPI is basically telling you how much inflation is happening in your area, and it's on a quarterly basis, and it's published every quarter. So you can look at your CPI, and so if it's up 3%, plus the 5%, you can raise 8%.
Yep.
10% being the cap. So if inflation is up 15%, I mean, that's a crazy amount, but if it's up 15%, you cannot raise the rent 20%. You're capped at 10%.
Exactly.
So, so this is essentially this is the state of California trying to limit and discourage owners of large rental properties, which we're talking apartment complexes, anything multi-unit, and of course there's a lot of residential houses out there that are owned by Wall Street firms that popped up during the last housing crisis. Those guys are affected by it, and they're not able to raise the rent above 10% or whatever the CPI plus the 5% is. An individual owner can still raise the rent above 10% with the proper notice, correct?
Yep.
But like what Josh was saying is, if you go ahead and try to, do what, consider like a makeup, like, hey, I haven't raised rent in 5 years. I'm going to make up, for lost time, and I'm going to raise your rent 15%. You're probably going to lose your renter.
In the last 4 years, it's gone up.
Yeah.
Like up.
Yeah. And so if you there is such a thing as a rent shock where you're like, it's so much money. They're like, oh my God, I can't afford this. I'm going to get out, I'm going to move. So that is an issue that you want to do, right? You don't want to completely shock your renter. So I think the best practice, and another practice that we always advise our clients, is every year move it up. And by how much are we been moving up rent lately? For people that are doing it every year, what would you say that?
It's usually near 10%.
Near 10%.
Yeah. Some owners are, like, hey, and we'll work it out with them. Look, I know you want to try to achieve back to the market value. So why don't we recommend maybe every 3 years, like we'll do certain increments, or we figure out a plan so the tenant's not shocked right away, right?
Yeah.
We can work, and we can explain it to the tenant too. Hey, we're going to go up X amount, or what's so on the new renewal, or however we do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say, if we're at 10%, that's probably pretty aggressive. In prior years, we probably weren't that aggressive with it because it really based on the market. Right now, there's really no rental inventory. Rents are high, and so we want to balance it with keeping the renter at market rate, but also maximizing the owner's investment. Right? We want to maximize their cash flow. So 10%, but maybe fast forward 2 years from now, maybe there is a plethora of properties on the market and rents are not growing like they've been growing. They start to slow down, which you'll see that in the news as things change. And when that happens, okay, at this point, we may recommend maybe only increasing it 4 or 5%.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know in some years we say, hey, you know what? Rents have actually reversed. We've had years in the past, and we've been doing this over 20 years. We've had years in the past where rents actually reverse a little in some areas. And we said, you know what? We recommend keeping the renter on the rate that that they're set at, right? There's no growth in CPI, rents going downwards. And so, being able to do that, I think, is, kind of monitoring the market is definitely huge, right? So, okay, so 1482, it's not over. It's got some complexity into it. And I know when we even do lease agreements and things like that, lease renewals, we're always searching. Plus, at the same time, we're always talking to the attorneys on what's changing within those laws itself.
Oh yeah, we're searching by county too. We're not just searching with. So we have our attorneys. We go by county as well. We need to be thorough. Because, like I said, California, what we just pretty much explained is it overshadows all of California. But LA, I know LA County is pretty much the example for everywhere most of the time. They're the trendsetter, right? So we always go off LA County, but we look into every county regardless, because whether it's AB 1482 or what trends or even notices, all that kind of stuff, we need to double check. We always do that. Attorneys, counties, everything. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I know too is even before AB 1482 was around. I mean, we have fair housing issues, and that's another strong point that we always like to bring up to property owners is it's very easy for an owner to violate law without even realizing they're doing it. Back in 2011, 2012, one of the biggest things for violating law was saying, sorry, you're on unemployment, I can't approve you. That's totally illegal. You cannot discriminate against their income. Or, hey, you know what? You work for General Motors and they're going bankrupt. You may lose your job. I can't approve you. You're not allowed to do that. And although that may sound logical, right? You're thinking, hey, wait a minute, hold on. I'm going to rent this guy my house for a full year. What I'm looking at is he's going to run out of income or he's going to potentially lose his job. I see that as a risk. Yes, that might very well be, but you can't discriminate against their income. That is an issue, and the state has an issue with that. And so those type of things get people in hot water, right? And then what happens is these people want to move into the property. You've rejected them for that reason. They go get a fair housing attorney, which, by the way, they can get for free. And next thing you know, you're in court on a fair housing claim, right? And so it's those, obviously, race and gender and age and things like that. Like, oh, they have kids, I'm not going to rent to them. Well, that's only okay if you're in the senior community, right?
Yeah, we've had a few of those, believe it or not.
Yeah, and again, I understand there's reasons why people are wanting certain things, but these things are what can cause them to have lawsuits related to their investment. And so we're keeping them from doing that, right? We're mitigating those issues because we're complying with those laws. Again, we know what those laws are. We know what those traps are. We know how to kind of navigate around those things to make sure that they don't happen. And so those are some of the things I think that are really leverage why do you pay a property manager? And it's to make sure you don't have these violations.
Yeah.
So, and I think the last thing we've kind of already been talking about a lot is repairs, and you guys go, hey, why do you talk about repairs so much? Repairs are probably one of the single biggest issues in property management. Outside of rent collection, would you agree repairs is probably our busiest department?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
There are usually why tenants are pissed off. There are why tenants will say they're not making a rent payment. Repairs can be an issue. Owners failing to take care of the property. And so they're not doing that. And I've been to eviction court. I've been to eviction court a lot, and I've always see issues of I didn't pay my rent because owner didn't do something. And most of those cases the tenant does lose, but it could have really been avoided, and they lose for one simple fact. The judge always says the same thing every time. Okay, well, if I tell the owner here to fix that window, do you have the last 3 months of rent? And the tenant always goes, oh, no, I spent it.
Yeah. Well, it's a two-way street.
Right.
I don't think they realize
they
that.
don't know that if he would just hold the money. Yeah, I have the money. I've been making money orders payable to the owner the entire time, and I have them right here. They would probably win that case. But no, they don't. But the thing is the bottom line is why even go to court? That's a lose-lose for everybody.
Yeah.
It's repairs, and it's being on top of your property and taking care of it. And I think the property we were kind of talking about right now is one that with the flood, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you want to talk a little bit about like what that property was going through and kind of like a head scratcher of, everyone was trying to figure out how to resolve it and what we did ultimately.
Yeah. So that home, it was somewhat on a slope, and so the home had basically an add-on that I don't think was permitted beforehand, and so it had a room downstairs, only one bedroom.
So it was a 2-story home.
Yeah, 2-story home. In that corner of the home, so if anyone knows California, we rarely have rain. And the last few months, from February to April?
Yeah, it
poured. It was like almost like Washington, I felt like. There was rain dumped everywhere and what have you. So consistent rain just coming down, and the way the home and the add-on was, built, the water was just flooding into that corner of where it was.
Yeah.
And so water kept coming in, and we've been doing our best to do a repair, and we had to come back to the drawing board and be like, wait, hold on, we got to relocate this water to divert it to the front of the home now.
Yeah, and I think looking at the pictures of the property, the issue was, so it's a 2-story home on a normal street,
Mm-hmm.
but the backyard had a huge hill in it,
Yep.
right? So the backyard went up, and there was another house probably on top of that.
Exactly.
So the water was running down this hill.
Mm-hmm.
So plus all the water on the roof line, it was pitched towards the backyard, so it's getting all this water dumped from
it's
from
just
the
concentrating.
yeah
right there.
from the roof and
Yeah.
coming down from the hill, and it was just flooding the backyard. And I know when our techs went out there, it had not rained in 30 days, and the yard was still soggy because it had been so saturated.
Mm-hmm.
So as the water was kind of building here, somebody on the sides of the house, right? So you have your backyard, and then you have a right side and left side, kind of like that lead out to the front of the house. They had put a planter made out of a brick wall, about maybe 3.5 feet away from running alongside of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And then I know they had poured concrete in, and the concrete was actually above the
Exactly.
it was above the foundation of the house
Mm-hmm.
inside. So it was up, and it was tilted towards the house. So it became like this huge gutter.
No, yeah, it was just channeling all
was
this
like
water right along the home.
Exactly. It was just like
Yeah.
this gutter. And this owner had this property. I think she's had this property for years.
Yep.
And never had this issue because the water was absorbed in the backyard and the grass.
Well, it says a lot about California.
Yeah,
it's insane how much we haven't
exactly.
rained like that forever.
No, exactly. And so
Yeah.
we had this mass amount of water in it. It kept flooding the inside of the house. Flooded 3 times, and every trick we tried to do, reasonably just would not work until finally we said, okay, we need a long-term solution. So our team went out there, and I know we ripped up all the concrete, right?
Yep.
We ripped up all the concrete. We put in yard drains. We completely, I want to say we completely reconfigured how the water flows now.
Exactly.
With yard drains coming from the yard, and just redid the whole thing. And I think that's a really cool project, because a lot of times a property manager may not necessarily know exactly what to do, and they're having to rely on a vendor. And now the vendor is going to maybe, in some cases, charge them too much for it, or give them solutions that maybe are not practical. Where we own this property in a sense, not own it physically, but we own it in the sense that we're going to be here next raining season. If this doesn't work, it's going to be we're going to have to warranty this, right? So we're making sure our solution is there, and it's going to be the right one. But being able to get with our team in-house and study it, I think is
Yeah.
really kind of the dynamic that kind of glues us together.
Well, I think repairs is vital to learn, because I can't tell you how many agents I've heard them talk and they don't know a lot of basics whatsoever. And that's what I was telling someone down on the floor that we have over here, is learning this really does help you. It doesn't just help you with day to day or whatever you do around here. It's going to help you in your life.
Yeah.
It's really vital to know this information.
No, exactly. And so, and speaking of repairs, I'll throw this out there. And this was I discussed this today in my broker meeting at the office we were at. Is in our portal now, when you're signed up, there's a repair request tab in there, and the agents were actually kind of tripped out on this. They're like, so I can request repairs on properties that we're going to have you guys manage? I go, no. I go, once you're part of our network, you can request repairs on any property that you're working on, whether we manage it or not,
No.
whether you're selling it. And so I was explaining to him, I go, those times when you're getting ready to close and all of a sudden there's these 3 little pesky issues from the property inspection report that the buyer is just really concerned about and they want it fixed or whatever. I go, send it over to us. I go, that's what we do. We race to get it done to be closed. We'll bill it out of escrow. And they're like, really? Because we have a hard time like getting stuff done. And I said, look it, I go, let me ask you this. I go, does this sound like your number one issue with repairs? You may know a guy that does something or know a company and you call them and now you're just biting your nails waiting for it to get done. You don't have updates. You're trying to close. The buyer's agent's calling you and you don't have any updates and you don't get a hold of this guy because he doesn't check his email or his text because he's working. And they're like, yeah. I go, exactly. I go, yeah, you just call our coordinator desk. I go, and you're going to talk to somebody and we're going to be emailing you proactively. I go, you can always get a hold of somebody and know exactly what's happening. Oh my God, that's great. That's great. That's great. And, we learned that in our Fannie Mae days when we were doing REO properties for Fannie Mae. The agents were like, oh my God, you're the only company I can call and I can get an immediate update on my property and get pictures. And it's because most contractors are smaller guys and they're out working. They don't have time to be answering your emails or your phone calls. So yeah, that was kind of cool, and they were super excited about that. They were jazzed about that.
Well, buckle up too. Our system's always updating every day.
That's what I told them. I said they're working on it every day. So anyway, to kind of wrap this up, the idea behind this podcast was obviously is what is property management, the life cycles of what we do. Hopefully, if you've listened to this, you kind of have a little better understanding of what we do and the value that we can provide to a property owner. Obviously, maintaining their property, helping them continue the cash flow, making sure that we're increasing the rents on an annual basis so that owner is staying up to market rent, making sure that when the renter can't pay that we're working with the renter, trying to establish payment plans, help them get back on their feet. And the goal is always to help them get back on their feet because evictions are costly and we want to do that as a form of last resort. But if should that happen, we take care of that. We'll work with the property owner to make sure that gets taken care of. We'll be the ones to show up to court and sheriff lockout, all that good stuff. And then, of course, knowing that we're there and the property needs work, whether it's turning it over as a rental, we call it rent ready, or just minor repairs or simple annual maintenance on the property that's needed. We can take care of all that, and that's for property owners that value that. They love that, right? Like that's there. You're getting that service for, in my opinion, really a small fee, right? And so that's really the core of it. And for an agent or broker to be able to sell that to their clients and sign them up within literally minutes within our system, and then from that point forward, be able to get a residual in perpetuity. You can sign up a client. We have some owners that have been signed up, and the broker's gotten a check now. It's been over 4.5 years, and they just still continue to get a check every single month. And so I think that's great, and you don't have to do anything beyond the initial sign up.
Well, it's under one roof. We're very personable too. We have our team right here, and they're going to be talking to one of them always regarding repair, what's going on with their home. If they need to talk about collections, heaven forbid, or anything of that nature, it's all here.
Yeah, exactly.
One roof.
Exactly. So I think that's in a nutshell of what we do. I think that gives you a pretty good overview. And if you're listening to this podcast, we encourage you to ask some questions. We'll talk about it in our other episodes. We like to kind of get some different feedback and kind of hear what other agents want to know. We know what we know. We know we already know what we want to hear, but we really want to know what other people want to hear. And so I try to take the feedback I'm getting every day when I'm talking to agents and brokers, and I tell them, listen, I'm going to talk about this in my podcast. Listen on it, and I'm going to, obviously I answer it when I'm talking to them on the phone, but I like to grab that information and talk about it, and then you like to get information and real life things that are happening down there on the floor. And be able to bring them into the podcast. And so hopefully through that, just create a little bit of education and make agents and brokers a little bit more comfortable in dealing with property management.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's going to do it for this, for the second episode. And look, if you've listened to us, if you enjoyed us, follow us. If not, tell us to kick rocks and don't listen to us again. But hopefully you'll follow us to help with our ranking. Definitely visit our website. It's modernwholesale.shop, and you can kind of learn a little bit more about what we do. And obviously follow us in all of our Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and all the places that we have. And you can find all the links in the bio. So thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it. And we're out until next week.
Deuces.
See ya.
Hey guys, this is Damien. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed listening to us ramble about real estate and property management. Don't forget to check out all our social media and visit our website for wholesale property management. You can find the link in the bio. If you have topics, questions, or crazy situations you want us to talk about, send us a message. See you on the next episode of ModTalk.